Welcome back to the show, everyone. I've got El Toro Water District President Catherine Freshley here with me today. She's going to be talking about our water infrastructure,
right,
and many things that I didn't even know that you've already, you've sat here for 1 minute and you've brought so much awareness to the water infrastructure.
Well, I think, what are they, as a society, most people take the infrastructure of the society for granted. That includes water, that includes all the sewers, that includes even the electrical distribution system. I'm an electrical engineer, and I worked for General Electric back in the 60s and 70s when we built this, when we built for the country, the grid. And people just take advantage, think they throw a switch on, the light's going to come on.
Well,
they turn the water faucet on, the
We're
water's
lucky.
going to come out. They flush the toilet, and it's going to, and the waste is going to dispose. But behind all that, to make that happen, are agencies like El Toro Water District, or you got Southern California Edison here, and so without those services, we couldn't have the society we have.
Right.
And I think that's a fundamental thing. And so that society, though, having that costs money.
That's a lot of money.
And that's what I want to make sure that the community understands, that, we're planning 10 years ahead. We're looking at having to spend about $114 million just to ensure that our infrastructure can service this community, as well as we service also Laguna Hills, Lake Forest, Mission Viejo, and some of Aliso Viejo. Now, we don't service all of those. We don't service all Mission Viejo. We serve part of it. We serve part of Lake Forest. We share that with Irvine Ranch Water District. See? So, in Southern California, here in south of the basin, because the northern Orange County, they're over a water reservoir. Mm-hmm. So they can get, much of their water comes out of the ground.
Wow.
All of us in South County rely on the water from the Sierras coming down the California Aqueduct, or coming from the Colorado River and the Colorado Aqueduct.
Right.
So we have to import all of the water, and when Cortese developed the community, back in the 80s, El Toro was, back in the 60s actually, okay, and El Toro had been founded at that point, and so we started to supply the water to them. Our plan of what we have to spend for the next 10 years, and by different colors, where it's going to be spent. And you'll see that the orange is aqua, which is basically the ocean outfall. We'll talk about later that all the water that we don't use here has to be cleaned before it goes to the ocean. And then we have a pipeline that goes from here and deposits the water in the ocean down by Laguna Beach. But that's our responsibility to make sure that we take care of that. Mm-hmm. Okay? Right. And then the other big one is the amount of time and money we're going to be spending at the waste treatment plant. That waste treatment plant was built by Cortese when he developed the community, because the golf course, which you're showing right here, when it was built by Cortese back in the early 60s, in order to water it, he had one of the first golf courses that was maintained and didn't use fresh water, but used recycled water.
Oh.
Now, it wasn't to the level that we do now.
Sure.
But that's what he had brought. And so we bought that plant from him in the mid 80s, okay, from the family. Mm-hmm. We bought it from the family.
Right.
So so we have to spend, we're going to be spending quite a bit of money there, because that thing's 60 years old. And I'll show you some slides of what we see, the kind of things that, the damage that just naturally takes place. And that's what we have to fight with.
Okay.
This slide is showing basically this is the R6 reservoir. That was built by El Toro, and it's a 275 million gallon reservoir, but it's covered.
Right.
The difference is we can store then fresh water in there that's been cleaned and ready to drink. Okay, most reservoirs that are open, you can't do that. You got to treat it when it comes out. We have a very slight amount of treatment. Having that reservoir makes us really quite unique because we own 45% of that. We built it and then we sold and shared it now with our Santa Margarita Water District has 50% of it, about 55% of it, or 50% of it, and Molten Miguel has 5%, and so we maintained 45% of it. So they share in the cost, and a couple of years ago it cost us over $27 million to put a new cover on and a new layer in.
Wow.
But see, that reservoir for this community is critical for an emergency. If we lost the source of water from Northern California or from the Colorado River, we have enough water there, depending on time of the year, to get through about 2 months, 60 days of operation without any additional water coming in. That's enough time to fix, we figure, to fix whatever's preventing the water coming from upper Northern California or from the Colorado River. So that's a safety provision for us. Now the next slide shows, within the community, we have these steel tank reservoirs. They have to be, maintained. Those were built in just here in the village. Most people don't realize it. Just on the other side of the Ayers Hotel, we got 2 reservoirs. Okay, R2 and R3 are up on the hill. You don't see it behind the trees. You go, and you got a reservoir.
We'll look for them now.
Yeah, and if you drive around, you go to Clubhouse 5. You go, you look over to the west. You'll see a big reservoir there. That's our reservoir also.
Wow.
So those reservoirs actually feed the water then directly and maintain the pressures then to the community. Now we have a couple other reservoirs on the other side of the freeway to serve the other customers, okay? But to maintain those reservoirs, because they're all steel, and periodically we have to go through because if there's any rusting, that has to be, because you're storing drinking water in them.
Right.
So they have to be clean. And so the process really of coating them and cleaning them, and which has to be done periodically, and we're, it's about $2 million for each reservoir. So we got 5 of those. That's $10 million that we have to spend periodically just to maintain the level of service we've been able to give you.
That's amazing.
And these are the things that people just don't see, they don't understand, and my God, they say, well, water shouldn't cost anything, but it's getting the water to somebody that's in a drinkable state and then removing it and taking it away without creating health issues.
Right.
Those are the real keys of living in a society of our own, that we have.
Right.
If we were farmers, we'd have a septic tank someplace and we'd have a well someplace else, and hopefully they're not connecting to each other.
Yeah, hopefully
and
they're
that
not
happens.
contaminated.
But those of us who grew up in the Midwest, we're familiar with, when I grew up, we had pumps, we had wells, we had septic tanks that had to be periodically cleaned. The lifestyle has changed dramatically, and for most people in the community now, if depending upon where they grew up, have never had the experience of living on in a situation where you don't have what we're providing, the services that are provided. And so what you pay us is for the services to make sure you stay healthy and you have the water you need. So this slide really gives you an idea of this is the waste treatment plant, that which we bought from Cortese, which was built in the early 60s. And you could see the remains of just what it's going to take to improve that. You can see the damage.
A lot of
and this is a safety issue and, and a reliability problem, because we can't continue. That picture on the right is one of the very first clarifiers. That was built by Cortese back in '62. Yeah,
it's time.
See? So, there's a lot of money involved in getting that. The next page is electrical equipment. And that in itself now, you'd say, well, electric is still working. Yeah, the panel on the left is an older panel, made back in the 80s. And, as an electrical engineer, I know a lot of panels that were built, we didn't build, major manufacturers, we understood arc flash and a lot of issues. We wouldn't have built panels of that nature when I was an engineer at GE. But panel builders, they did it. They followed the basic electrical codes at the time. And what has changed a lot, see, the older panels nowadays don't meet the arc flash. And arc flash means that if there's a flash that happens here and a man's standing there, you have to be far enough away that he doesn't get killed.
Oh my gosh.
And it is hazardous. And this gives you an example of the new panels that we're in the process of putting in. Each of those are about $160,000 each. So, and every pump station, and whether it's waste treatment or water pump station, to get them to move the water or to move the sewage requires electrical equipment.
Right, right.
Okay. The next slide is actually a lot of people in the community are very familiar with this because we've been talking to GRF, we've talked to VMS, we've talked with United particularly, because the Aliso Creek lift station, sewage lift station, was built by Cortese back in the early 60s when he was developing gates 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is, people who live in that area are familiar with it. And the purpose of that pump station is to get the sewage that comes from all those houses up on the hill near gate 4, you get flowing it down. And because there's a hill, if you go from gate 1, toward clubhouse 3, notice how you go up a hill and then down a hill. Well, if you got sewage you got to move, you got to get over that hill to get it to the waste treatment plant.
Right.
This pump station does that, okay? That's the whole purpose of it. If we didn't have it, all the sewage, if we had a problem there, would go right into Aliso Creek.
Right, right.
Toward the ocean. The last slide, it just shows you all the issues that we have of replacing the Tektite, replacing how just, when we have pipes going across the creek, natural erosion you got to deal with. I feel personally this information is so critically important to residents.
Agreed.
So that they really have an understanding of what's happening, what it takes, and actually when they look at their monthly, they don't see it in their monthly assessment because it's paid for in the, it's paid in the assessment, so they don't get a water bill. They don't get a sewer bill. But basically everybody in the community, the water and sewer bill is about $90 a month. Single family homes, like in Lake Forest and places like that, end up paying about $140. So you're saving by living in the group, but there's still money that's required in order to provide the services.
Catherine, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate all your information. I know the viewers have gained a lot of knowledge out of it.
Well, I hope so, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're watching This Day on Village TV. We'll be back in a minute.